Okay, alcohol and opioid and narcotic misuse, abuse, and addiction. In the media, we see this in movies, television, songs, films. It's all normalizing drinking and doing drugs, making it seem like it's a good time. It's cool, part of the college years. We don't really see health implications in the news other than like people driving under the influence or crashes. Accurately, though, substances may be a good time, but inaccurately, it doesn't show the effects of addiction and the health implications that come with it. So by this way, it's desensitizing the chronic illness of addiction to this population as it disturbs all aspects of these addicts' lives. In retrospect, though, there is instances when family support helps with rehabilitation, encouraged in medical attention by observing this family member have harmed themselves or implications of the substance abuse. Financial support if the substance abuse has become to a point where they can't keep a job or keep up job performance, as well as being emotionally there for them and empathizing with them. When there's lack of family support, we can see that rehabilitation may not be quite as sought after because it may be harder for them to realize that they have a problem. It may also be too intoxicated to register health implications or harm that they have done to themselves or others, and they may induce further stress if they're unable to retain a job and meet these basic needs. And they may feel isolated and unable to have their basic emotional needs met. Cultural environment, peers are a big player in this. We know this by peer pressure, but social drinking may start the addiction process, and these peers may interfere with sobriety by enabling and engaging in activities that would only produce more substance use. But they may also be supportive and be there through the rehabilitation process. It's definitely a situational thing, but they could also be part of the reason why someone can't see their own addiction and health implications because other people are doing it, so it's fine if they do it kind of mentality. And then there is cynical nature. So there's apparent vulnerability with this set of groups because they're under the influence, and so they may not be in the proper mindset, and that really makes them super vulnerable to people who want to take advantage of that. It also is a recurring vulnerability if relapse happens, and studies are showing that addiction in families make up about half of the chance of someone suffering from addiction. So they're setting an environment that children can learn these behaviors from, and therefore making them as well a vulnerable population. And then we have our legal and political system. About 60% of inmates in the federal prison suffer from substance abuse and addiction. Federal prisons have treatment plans for substance users to get clean and remain clean when released. There is a variance in treatments of addicts across the nation, state, and community, and it will look different due to the ability to see it as a disease rather than a choice. Then we have potential barriers that they may encounter. Religious beliefs are strong against substance use, but cultural beliefs and traditions sometimes tend to instigate things like drinking. And there is a strong stigma about addiction being a choice and all a mental state rather than discussing the psychological effects, and strong opinions can dehumanize a substance abuser and may hinder getting them help for the fear of judgment. And then we have international scope. We've got countries who have strict laws, including places in the Middle East and Asia. And in Indonesia, they actually, if you were to have drugs in your bloodstream, you could face a death penalty because they have a strict no drug tolerance. And it gets even worse in Saudi Arabia. The penalty for even a possession of drug could be a public execution. And then we go and jump into our health disparities, socioeconomic status. So those with lower socioeconomic status are more likely to suffer from drug and alcohol use. There's higher status are at risk for heavy alcoholic drinking and marijuana use. Prevention and education programs have been shown to benefit those of both of those classes, but peer pressure and neighborhood environment play a huge role in beginning addictive behaviors. Race and ethnicity. Cocaine use has been shown more prevalent in Caucasian males, followed by Hispanics, than African Americans. Hispanics and African Americans are more likely to be arrested on drug-related charges. Race plays a role in initiating addiction and its progression. African Americans have been shown to escalate faster with alcohol abuse and carries into adulthood at a higher rate than other ethnicities. Religion. We've got religious practice that is linked to better mental health and lower incidences of addiction. Remission for addictive behaviors is usually more likely if the person is involved in their religion. Latest research shows that African American Caucasian drug abuse rates are higher, and overall decline in religious observance has been linked to rising rates of drug abuse. For gender, we've got men are more likely to die from opioid-related causes. The number of women dying from prescription opioid overdose is rising as 4 times higher since 1999. Biological makeup is thought to contribute to the differences in males and females and addiction susceptibility. Typical lower body weight of women contributes to becoming intoxicated or under the influence of drugs. Geographical location. There's areas where more poverty exists and is linked to increase in substance abuse. Violent neighborhoods are more likely to have a problem with substance abuse. Highly populated urban areas are at risk for substance abuse than compared to if someone were to live in a rural area. Unemployed homeless population concentrations are likely to have higher usage, as well as in the United States, the northern eastern area is more likely and has higher rates of substance abuse. And there is, of course, some bias. Implicit bias refers to attitudes and beliefs that exist subconsciously but affect decision-making and interactions. Examples include not taking pain complaints seriously in someone with a drug history, or caring for other patients before caring for a patient admitted for drug overdose or withdrawal, even though you do not consciously realize you are doing so. Explicit bias refers to actual attitudes and behaviors that manifest outwardly. So refusing to care for a patient who presents with drug overdose, or refusing to give opioids for pain control for a substance abuse addict, or using stereotypical terms to distinguish someone who struggles with substance abuse, like a junkie, dirty user, addict. In an international scope, 35 million people are estimated to suffer from substance abuse. Opioids are responsible for 2/3 of the drug-related deaths worldwide. 11 million people abuse drugs via needles, but many have either HIV or hepatitis C. Fentanyl and cocaine use worldwide has also increased. Despite these rising numbers, only 1 in 7 of those suffering receive treatment, and there is an overall lack of proper treatment and recovery options worldwide. And these are our references.